Gina, stop.
Hello everyone, Maria and
Gina Capelli.
My partner in crime, as we always say. So you are watching Reflect and Reset with Maria and Gina, and we are so happy to come back to you, and I'm happy that my partner is here today, because
You never know.
You never know when she's gonna miss. But I'm happy she's here today, and continuing on this month of empowering women, we continue to bring stories of women that can inspire you and can connect with you, and that you can learn something from, from all of us. Right. So we have our guest today.
So we have Marcia MacNeill, and she's a very dear friend of ours. And Marcia has a wonderful story that we feel will be able to empower you and be able to inspire you, and to actually take initiative in your own life. So we're going to let you introduce you and let you tell us a little bit about you.
Well, first of all, ladies, I would like to start off by saying thank you so much for extending this invite to me. I'm very, very privileged. I'm honored actually to be here. I consider you both friends, and I also consider you admirable women. You have done and accomplished so much, not only with this organization, but with the community. And I really look up to you. You're an incredible role model, not only to me, but to many people.
And we feel the same way. That's why we are excited to have you here.
Well, thank you very much. So, what do you want to talk about?
Tell us about your story, because you are an immigrant, so a lot of people can relate to the challenges of an immigrant. So if you could start with that in mind.
Sure. Well, first of all, I just want to say that everybody that's walking around this earth has a story. Everybody's in their own world. Everybody has their own story, and every story is an incredible story, right? I go around doing what I have to do, not keeping tabs or keeping notes or keeping score. You just do what you need to do. And I don't know how far you want to go back, but it was...
Tell us where you're from.
It was a hot, sunny day at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I'm from Ecuador, and I am from a little town in Ecuador, a province in Ecuador, not from a big city. And I was born in the 60s, give my age away, and it was an incredible time.
You look amazing.
I believe we were all
born in the 60s. Great year.
Right, exactly. And if I just may start off, because when you really reflect where I started, or where we all started, it's amazing, right? And where you are right now. It really, truly is an amazing story. I mean, I was born into a time, into a family, into an era, into a little town. And the only thing I'm going to say is, it was a town where the roads weren't paved, the houses were made out of cane, the roofs were tin. I was born in a house where my grandmother was born, my father was born, and I was born, and surrounded by great aunts who never got married and who lived in our home with us, because that's where they were born also. And I was raised that way. And no electricity. So, and you can look at that and say, wow, that's really backwards, that's really bad. But really, when you think about it, it's like, I refuse to look at it like that, because if you wanted, it was hot, you wanted lemonade, you went to the backyard and picked the lemons. If you wanted orange juice, you went to the backyard and picked, right? Everything was fresh. So today, we pay a lot of money for that.
Right.
Right? So, and even when we went to school, if we needed shoes, we had one guy. What did they call? Cobbler?
The cobblers.
Yeah, and he would make our shoes. Like, who could afford that today?
The little wood ones?
No.
No. Oh, that was Holland, sorry.
I love going into that little store because you smelled the leather.
Yeah.
It was the fresh leather. So anyway, so that's where I started. And then my family came here in the 60s. So when I came here, it was a big shock to me. But I started in the public school system.
How old were you?
I was 8 years old. And I came into 3rd grade, and I was the only Spanish-speaking child in the public school back in those days.
Wow.
So I learned English like in 6 months. We all did.
You were forced to, right? It's like there was no bilingual,
we kind
courses
of immediately.
Yeah.
Right at the end of that year, I was winning spelling bees.
Wow.
Okay. And I came here in December, so I had 6 months. Yeah, it was amazing, and we were not of not a rich family. My parents, as my family, my uncles, my aunts, they all came here the same way. Everybody had 3 jobs. because God forbid you should ask help from the government. Nobody did that. That was an embarrassment. So I had hand-me-downs because my father used to work for the only cleaning service at the time, Westchester House Cleaning.
Oh, wow.
Okay?
Wow.
Because there were factories here. So the ladies would work in the factories. You know, they would sew. And so, you know, my father would go clean, they would give, and that's how we dressed sometimes. So anyway, we went through the school, and then we went to the high school, and we did what we could, great times. But my parents were not, you know, educated people where they insisted and they were on top of us too. You know, we did what we could. And I goofed off. I goofed off a lot. I could have done a lot better, but I didn't. So when college time came, I was so overwhelmed. My parents had no idea how to do any of this. So what did I do? I went back to Ecuador.
Wow.
I swear, I graduated today, and like 3 days later, I went back to Ecuador. And I went to Quito, which is the capital of Ecuador. And I had never been there. So it was a completely different world. And I graduated, came back, but I didn't.
So you went there for college?
I went there for college.
Okay.
But you know what? Nobody said to me or guided me or said, you know, you should do this, you should do that, whatever. So I didn't know. So somebody said, why don't you become a bilingual secretary? Remember back in those days?
Yeah.
That was the thing.
Yeah.
Right?
You can work for the UN, you can work for anywhere.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I went back, did that, came back, and I started looking for a job. Back then in those days, the Sunday Times, remember how thick
Yeah,
that?
sure.
And that's where you had and I didn't know the city.
Right.
One of my cousins had to take me down and teach me the city. My mother was deathly afraid of the city. She didn't want to go, but that's what I did. And I started kind of venturing out on my own. And I got a really, really incredible job with Banamex, which is Banco Nacional de Mexico.
Oh.
I didn't have the experience. I kind of forced myself through with the agency. They didn't want to put me in there because you don't have the experience. And they said, please just get me up.
You were persistent.
Yeah, and I did.
Oh, I wonder who else.
What do we say, Gina?
Oh, persistence pays off, or where
Persistent is the key to success.
Yes.
Amen. Right?
Amen.
And so then what happens is I got the interview and I got the job. And I got the job as the secretary, bilingual secretary to the operations manager. I'll never forget, Roberto Fernandez. And I was doing that for 3 months, and then they moved me up to human resources. Now, human resources was interesting because that was completely new. But one of the things I loved to do was back in the day, you went around giving the checks out to everybody, right? There was one area of that bank that was isolated. But I got to go in there because I had to give them. And when I went in there, I saw this is like a different world. Like the people were different. Screens back in those days.
Yeah.
No screens. Nobody had computers or anything, right? Computer screens, phones on the thing. Oh, everybody's on the phone. Nobody's paying attention to you. And I went out. I said, God, I wonder what that's about, right? So my boss, a few years later, said to me, the people were so classy and uppity and dressed I've never seen that before. So she sits me down. She says, you know what, Marcia? I just want to let you know there's an opening in the money desk, and I'm wondering, and I'll take it. She didn't, but you didn't even finish. I said, it doesn't matter, I'll take it. Whatever it is, I take it.
You're hungry. See,
I
that's
took it.
another
I took it.
advice.
And I started there as the money market clerk. And that's where my finance career began. Right there. And it was so interesting. I loved it. And I made friends with all the traders because they were all there.
This was in Quito?
No, this was here
Oh,
now.
this was
here
now.
now on Park Avenue, the Seagrass
Okay.
building.
Wow.
Right? And then one of the traders, a few years later, one of the traders left and went for Bankers Trust. Bankers Trust is no longer around because they got bought out. I think it was by UBS or something like that. But anyway, Bankers Trust, back in the day, they only hired Ivy Leaguers, right? So he went to Bankers Trust, and I get a phone call. Hey, how would you like to come work with me at Bankers Trust? Said the trader. And I said, really? Okay. Went. They put me through this process. I'm not an Ivy Leaguer. I went to Quito, right? And I got the job.
Wow.
Working with him. The interesting thing is, the day that I started working with him, the first day, he was gone. Because apparently he had lied in his resume and he was fired. So who ended up doing his job? Right?
That's
I was
pretty-
supposed to be the assistant. And here I am. I inherited all of this. It was an amazing, amazing, amazing experience. And when I actually sat down on Wall Street, I'm thinking to myself, I reflected, how can somebody from Chane be sitting here now?
Right, wow.
I had a staff of salespeople that depended on me. I became the fixed income trader for Bankers Trust.
Wow.
Okay?
That is some story.
Look at that. You know, we have to stop for a second
Okay.
because you're giving out points that people need to understand. And we're going to reiterate on the persistent. You were persistent and you were hungry.
Yes.
You would take
Right.
the opportunity. You're not in the mood of, well, that's not my job, or well, you know,
Right.
maybe, I don't know, that's uncomfortable.
Right.
You gotta get uncomfortable. You got very uncomfortable, but the only way you could grow is if you get uncomfortable.
Out of your zone.
So I just want to make sure people understand because it doesn't just happen. You have made it happen. You had the opportunity and you
You
made
were
it
hungry.
happen.
You were hungry. That's the other
But
thing.
you know what the
Beautiful.
interesting thing is? I didn't know I was hungry.
Yeah.
I just kind of did
You
what
just
I
did
did.
it. Yeah.
And it felt, which, by the way, brings me to another point. When I was at Bankers Trust, I was there. I loved it, and I ended up getting pregnant at that time because I was married already with my daughter. And long story short, I decided after a year of going back and forth, make a decision because I felt like I wasn't doing either job 100%.
Right.
So I decided to stop working and stay home with my daughter. But they replaced me with 3 people
Wow.
making a hell of a lot more money than I was making.
Wow.
Okay? And I remember at that point I said to myself, all because I didn't have that Ivy League certificate.
Mm-hmm.
And I said to myself, that's not gonna happen to this kid, the one I was carrying. That's not gonna happen. So when she was born, I focused. You're going to college, and you're going to a good college here. My daughter's 31 now, Allison, and she graduated from Fairfield University, went through private school her entire time. Sometimes we didn't have anything to eat, but I focused on the education. We made it happen. She graduated, she got a full grant to Fairfield University.
Oh.
And then from there, she graduated from IE Business School in Madrid as a master's.
Wow.
And now she's doing phenomenal, and she's in the city, and she works for L'Oreal, and I said, and she's making great money, right? But when
And you were a single mom, right?
yes, I was.
Mhm.
Yes, I was. But I find that I had a lot more better opportunities than she did with all her education. If I would have had her education, I would have been unstoppable. And it made me reflect a little bit. It's not just so much about the certificate.
No.
It's about your maturity. It's about your discipline. It's about your professionalism. It's about you impressing people with how you work. Correct?
Yeah.
So they want you. They call you. It
Yes.
doesn't matter. They will make whatever they need, changes they need to make to fit you in, which is what they did with me.
Yeah.
Right? And of course I didn't have that, but I was there. I got there. So when I was there at Bankers Trust, I saw, traders, stockbrokers, and I'm thinking, stock, because I was doing fixed income, bonds, repos, all that stuff. And I said, oh, stocks, that's interesting. One day I want to do that too. No wonder. Anyway, I stopped working. My daughter's now 3 years old. It's time for me to get a job. We're living over by Long Island. The only thing, I didn't want to be away from her. The only thing around the house, around where I live, was stock brokerage firms. So I went in and I asked for a job. He goes, yeah, but you want to be a stockbroker? Yeah, sure. We'll sponsor you for your Series 7. I don't know if you know, but Series 7 is like one of the highest.
Right.
It's up there with the bar.
Yeah.
It's up there with all of
Yeah.
those. And I was like, all right. So I got myself into that, and I passed. It was a 6-hour test. And I
Wow.
passed that test, and I became a stockbroker,
Wow.
right? So I don't know how I lasted there. So I never had any training in sales. I never had anything. There's a
incredible.
desk, there's a phone, get to work. And I was like, oh my God, I gotta figure this out. How do I do that? So that was an experience on its own. And like I said, that's what started my whole financial career, right?
Wow.
So what does that mean? I remember the magazine, The New Yorker.
Sure.
Once I saw, they had the little comic strips down in the bottom, and I saw this little strip there of 2 elderly men sitting on their porch in their rocking chair, right? And the one says, everything that I wanted from life, life gave me. My only regret is I didn't ask for enough.
Wow. Good one. Good
Right.
book. Good.
I
Yeah.
never forgot that.
Yeah.
I never forgot that. And you just kind of, when you start off like that, ladies, you should know, right? You get into a habit of just living your life like that. Everything you do is with that mindset.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
And you just do it. You just do it. You don't think, you don't want justification, you just do what you need to do. And that's
So
it.
it seems like the story that you're telling is all of an uphill.
Yeah.
Uphill. I won't call it a battle. You know, you climbed a very successful hill that were challenging.
Yes,
Challenges.
yes.
Were there any setbacks? Did you have any setbacks that would have turned around to you and said, I can't do it anymore. I can't go. I can't move forward. You know, we think about that all the time, right? What stops us from saying, no more. I don't want to do anymore, right? But then we have the drive, the mission. We have setbacks every day. But, you know, that's something I always want to know. Was there something that you kept going even with, let's say, maybe something that was...
In that particular time of my life, I can't think of a setback like that because I was just going.
I mean, your divorce.
Yeah,
right?
that came later, and yes, as you know, the personal part of our life hits us in our emotions.
Right.
And it depends, everybody's different, but with me, that's a weakness, right? Everything else can be fine, but when the emotional part is not fine, that kind of throws me.
It throws off your balance.
Yes.
Yeah, well, we live with our hearts,
Yes,
you know?
yes,
And a lot
yes,
of us
yes.
lead with our hearts.
Yes. So that divorce, what it did to me was it taught me I was too emotional. You know, almost everything was based on emotions. It took me 5 years to finally just get out of that relationship because of my emotions. And if it did anything, was it taught me how to be more practical, right? More practical, and that's how I want to be now, more practical. And as you get older, you go through more things, and it kind of, like we said earlier, right? It's true what they say, what doesn't kill you does make you stronger,
Yeah.
right?
And it's never permanent. You
No.
know, nothing terrible is permanent. Nothing great is permanent.
Right.
You know, that is life. So we have to learn to ride the wave.
Yeah. Did you guys ever watch The Honeymooners?
Yes, sure.
Yeah.
Remember, not Ralph, but his friend?
Ralph,
Norton.
Norton, yeah.
Norton. He says, so not my guru, be kind to those people on the way up,
Right.
because you're going to meet the same people
On
on
the
the
way
way
down.
down. Right?
That's
I'm
good.
sorry, I watch way too much TV.
Oh,
isn't
I
it?
love that.
I love
That's a
it.
good quote.
Way too
No,
much.
that's a good one.
So, yeah, and then from there, yes, we got divorced or whatever. Long story short, I came back to Washington in '98, really beaten, and very defeated. But it kind of, I didn't want to do it because I was always very independent, and that to me was very defeatist because I had been, like you say, up here, and now I'm down here. And I ended up back at my mom's house and my dad with my daughter now, and she's 10 years old, and very defeatist. But I knew that I just needed a place to rest, get my thoughts together, and I would, you know, somehow survive, because we're all survivors, right? And I like to say that was the last thing that I wanted to do. And one day, you asked me about, I can't do it anymore. I was sitting in my living room like that, and I just said, I can't do this anymore. I can't do it. I can't stay here anymore. And then I said, I know, I'll go to my mom's house. That's when it came. At the end, I'll go to my mom. I did. I picked up my daughter, picked up some clothes, and just left. But I fought it. Okay, I fought it. And here comes the good thing. If I would have sat there fighting myself, saying, no, I'm not going, I don't want to go back, I don't want to go back to Austin, I don't want to do whatever. And if I would have had an angel that came to me and said, look, honey, I know you don't want to go, but you have to go. Because I'll tell you what's going to happen. You need to go to your parents' house because you need to spend more time with them, because I always lived away, okay? And this was 98. And in 2000, your grandmother's going to pass away. And 6 months later, your cousin is going to die in his sleep. And then a month later, your father's going to suffer a brain aneurysm. And then a few years later after that, your mother's going to die.
Wow.
Right? I would have been like, boom.
Right.
No
You would
thinking.
have been there. Yeah.
I went anyway. Because if there's one thing that I have learned, when God closes all the doors and leaves one open, it's because He wants you to go through that door. right?
But we resisted.
And we resisted, right?
Mm.
And I had to go through that door. And I was so defeated from the divorce that I just spent like 4 years just being with my parents. I just wanted the peace, quiet. I just wanted that. And then all those things that I just mentioned to you start to happen. And I was there for my dad when his mother, my grandmother, died. And then, you know, for my cousins and my aunt when her son died. And then I was there for us all with my father. And then my mother ends up passing away like 3 years after that, which was devastating.
Yeah.
You know. And but fortunately, everything I just mentioned is part of life.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Everything that I mentioned is part of life. And I like to say, and I like to give credit where credit is due. I like to say that, ladies, what you're experiencing right now is you're actually talking to the grace of God. Because if it wasn't for God, I would not be here. Okay?
Gives me good stories.
Yes, I am a true example and validation of His grace. Okay? And with that said, I can tell you more stories that were very dreadful as far as family is concerned, but I'd rather not go into that. But I will tell you, we've been through a lot, but God is great. God is great. Because if you're a child of God, He'll pick you up and put you in places that you can't even imagine.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, I forgot to tell you, I was also an elected official. One day I just came home, my mother said, oh, this is happening over there, long story short. I was like, oh, well, you can't do anything unless you're in a position of power, if somebody needs to go in there. I said, okay, have you ever been there? No. Nothing. I didn't know anything about politics. And I talked to my mom's next door neighbor, and he knew somebody who was running for mayor. And we kind of got together. We ran for office, and we got elected. So, and by the way, I don't want to say anything, but he was trying to be mayor for a long time, and until I got involved with him, he got elected. So, and that was an experience. We did a lot of good in our community, and you know, we worked with the day laborers, we organized them, and that's where a volunteer started coming into fruition. I got involved with many committees, and we did a lot of good. And not to mention for the community as well. And today that man is my husband.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. We were bored. We didn't know what else to do with it. We spent so much time together, and then it's like, what, now what?
I guess we have to stay together.
We've known each other since 2002.
Uh-huh.
And that's where we started campaigning, and then 2007.
Okay.
Yes.
So 12 years.
So, yeah.
Wow.
So here we are, and I'm very, very happy, and I'm very, very grateful to God. One of the things that I like to say to people is that I'm in a position to pay forward, because I don't know if you've heard of this, but to she that much is given, much is expected.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yes.
Right? So I have a responsibility with the man upstairs to help out and to do as much as I can for other people, because he was there for me. Right? So that's what I try to do in everything that I get involved with.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to count with you, with our nonprofit.
Count on you.
Count on you.
Yes, not with you. We're going to count on you. Because you want to do for people, you're going to do for people.
Yes.
Right? You're going to really pay it forward.
You're going to really pay it forward, because we feel the same way. You know,
Yes.
we are here to pay it forward, and we want to make a difference
Yeah.
And we
in our
see,
community.
and we see the pain, we see the suffering, and you know, we have our issues that, you know, where I have a bad day and oh, woe is me. But you know what?
Yeah.
There are so many people out there that need help, and that's what we're going to do. And we're going to
Yeah.
do that, and we're going to recruit you.
Yeah,
Right
that's
there.
wonderful. But that's one of the things that I tell people. Whatever it is you're going through, believe me, it could get worse.
Yeah.
Or it could be worse.
Yeah.
And there's always somebody else that has it worse than you.
Yeah.
Okay? So
And that's important to
Yeah.
keep in mind.
Yes.
I always think of that, and I
Yeah.
always, one of the things for me, and I know you feel the same way, is about gratitude. Like,
Yes.
gratitude equates happiness. I always say, if you are in gratitude, and there is so much to be grateful for every single day,
Yes.
no matter how bad our days are, there is always something to be grateful.
Sometimes you don't see it.
Well, that's
It's a training
Yeah.
process.
It
We
is.
talked about this.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you're so in your own head
Mhm.
that you can't get away from it.
Wow.
But you know, Maria is very big into that and into the grateful book, the gratitude books.
Oh yeah. Today, just this morning, I was having that conversation with one of my aunts who I love so much, and we were having the exact same conversation. It isn't until you go through all these trials and you know that you learn to appreciate what you have. Every single day I get up and I give thanks for at least another day.
Yeah.
I give thanks for my husband who had some heart issues, and I thank God that he's still around and that he can still work and that he can still use his mind and his hands and the little things that you normally take for granted, right?
Yeah.
For everything that you're doing, and I don't take anything for granted. Believe me, I don't, and I've learned and I've been there, and I can't take anything for granted. I think that if I take something for granted, it's an insult. It's an insult. I can't, you know.
And like Gina says, you know, you train your mind.
Yeah.
I mean, this is all, our mind is the most powerful thing. So we can train ourselves that when we go into that dark side, that we can come out of it through gratitude.
Absolutely.
And it is not easy. You know, we all have been through, like you say, I mean, life is a roller coaster. It's, but I always say that you don't want to stay in the darkness for too long.
No.
And we could all go there. We all do. But how can we get out of the darkness? And if you go to gratitude for the littlest thing, because every day, like you can look at the sun and you can be thankful that you have the sun, or that you can have the moon, or you have a beautiful day or a breezy day. Everything. If you can find it in your life, you can find it in nature.
But it's also acknowledging that you are
Being mindful,
when you're acknowledging that you are in a bad situation right now. It's okay to be in a bad situation.
You know, somebody once said to me, if you had a bad day, there's nothing more powerful when you're having a bad day than for you, with that mindset, do something nice for somebody else.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Turn it around.
Yeah.
Flip your day around.
Yes. You're
A
having
smile.
a bad day, do something
They say
else
you
for
walk-
somebody
you walk-
else.
you
Help
walk-
somebody else.
You walk by somebody on the street and you smile and you say good morning.
Yes.
And you see the difference in how they light up.
That's right.
There's just this morning I was walking in, some man was walking with his coffee like this. I was like, good morning. He was like, good morning.
Yeah.
And he started
I
to smile. And he
I
started
do
to
that
smile.
all the time. I look at people, I genuinely want to say good morning to everybody, but most people don't want to say good morning.
You know what's funny? Is that people put their head down to not to get eye contact with me.
So
And I do that in my house where I live, and I'm walking home, or I'm walking to work, or I'm walking to the car, and they walk down like this, and I'm like this. Good morning.
Yeah, so true. And you know, you get used to that.
Yeah.
And the only time that I saw that we were doing this was when I worked at the other company before. I was in France. Every day, bonjour, bonjour, bonjour. And I said, you know, we don't do that.
No.
Yeah.
I'm going to start doing that.
Yeah.
Same thing. And
Yeah.
it's like, oh, why?
Yeah.
You know.
But you start to see the reaction because I
Yeah.
start to see the same people, and now they're looking at me and they're saying, "Hi." I'm like, "How are you today?" You know, it's different. They're starting to be more receptive.
Yeah, could be culture.
You always look so put together, and I've always admired that of you, and I think this is something that we should talk a little bit about it, right? Because when you're down, I mean, for me, I always say that I like to look the prettiest when I am the brightest color, and so that you start feeling good and people look at you. How do you deal when you are down? I mean, do you normally would do that? Because I've always seen you very put together.
Thank you. That's very nice. We all know Oprah, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oprah says, "Only wear clothes that make you feel alive."
I love it.
Okay?
Yeah.
Wear clothes that make you feel alive. That's what I try to do. There are some things that just bring you down.
Yeah.
Like I can't, even if I work at home, I can't just go to my computer in my pajamas. I can't do that. And I learned also in other companies that I have to dress the part.
Yes, that is important.
Yeah, I have to dress the part. And first impressions, you don't have a second chance.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
So whatever it is, and I try to tell my daughter this, but she's so influenced with the outside world, but I try to tell her that because I raised her that way. It's so important. You don't have to be like other people. You are who you are. Be different.
Right.
Yep.
Right? Be different. You be a leader. You have other people want to be like you. Right? When she comes to the house, she kind of, because I say, that's what you're wearing.
You don't want to hear it.
Exactly. That's what you're wearing to church. But yeah, no, but I think, Maria, that's how we were raised.
Yeah.
Like my mother, who wasn't rich, she always,
Looked,
you know, everybody
yeah.
admired how she dressed, how she looked, how she whatever. And she always used to say, you know, the dress doesn't make you make the dress.
Not the clothes, it's the hanger.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'd say that.
You carry that dress. You can have two
Yeah.
people wearing the same thing, and you
Who
carry
wore
it.
it better?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Who wore it better?
that is true.
Yes.
Well, we're getting close
Yeah.
To the end of the show. I mean, we
Already?
could go on forever.
Yeah.
Doesn't it go fast?
Yeah.
We always say, it's like, oh my gosh,
Just
30
chatting,
minutes just...
like sitting in the living room, just chatting.
Yeah,
The
and
girls
empowering
night out.
each other.
Yeah.
It's I've always loved to hear story. Like you say, everybody has a
Yeah.
story,
Yeah.
and we should pay a little attention to people's stories
Yes.
because we are too quick not to, sort of to not be interested. And you can learn so much because we all have a story to tell.
Yeah.
And I want to thank you for sharing your story with our viewers. And you will come back. We're going to do it in Spanish. So she'll come back in
I won't be at that one.
no. Although Gina is going to learn
I'm learning.
Spanish.
Actually, I started my interviews.
Yes. Oh, good for you. Good for you. Well, I just want to take this opportunity to thank you again, ladies. To thank you. It's a privilege to be here with you. It really, really, truly is. And I love the company. I'm a big fan of yours. And I want to wish you the best of luck in whatever it is that you decide to do and continue doing. And like I say, thank you for all the involvement in the community and everything you do.
And you will be calling you for the not-for-profit.
Yes, yes.
Oh,
Well,
We have one speed dial.
thank you.
We want to thank you so much, and to all the women out there, continue celebrating the month because
right.
this is our month. But it really, every day should be our day.
That's right.
Anyway, take care. Remember to like us. Bye bye.
See you next week.